Good morning. Thank you to everyone for waking up so early. This might be the most creatives that have ever been awake this early in the morning, so look at you guys go, the real professionals that Mum warned me about. I'd like to start this presentation because we will be talking a lot about culture, tradition, history. I'd like to acknowledge the original owners of culture, tradition and history on this land, the Yugara and Tervo people. And for once we are actually creatives meeting on the engine. I know every creative loves to put in their Instagram bio, creating on the engine. The engine is actually just this point in the river where the CBD is, on the Maywa, which is the Brisbane River, the big dirty brown snake. So yeah, it's nice to be here, and I acknowledge the traditional owners, the elders, past, present and emerging, because they sort of create the foundation of this long history that I get to talk about. Awkwardly, today I'm talking about my history. With that, we will talk about some sad subjects. So just like warning for everyone, we do look at like suicide, that sort of stuff, but there's a happy ending. I'm still here. Hey. But yeah, other than that, we're good. So yeah, I'm Tervo. Dad's from Finland, so I get a funny last name. That is my last name. My mum calls me Matthew. Seems weird to say. I just sort of don't run with that anymore because anyone with a common first name knows you spend your whole life going, oh, you know Matt? And they're like, which Matt? I know 7 of them. So just ran with the last name, and yeah, that's me, my mullet, and another flannel. I do live in Ipswich now, so got my Ipswich formal wear on. How do I? Hey, there we go, back. That's what I used to look like. So back long time ago, before I had a mullet, a beard, was doing all of this, I used to be a dirty car salesman. Not many people know that these days, and it's for good reason. When you're negotiating with Brisbane City Council a lot, it's best if they think you're a dumb artist. I generally turn up to meetings dressed like this. If it's summer, I'll wear thongs, because they're the public servants, they work for me, and I know what I'm talking about, so I don't have to dress nice. They have to dress nice for me. If I dress nice, they start to think that I know what I'm talking about. They start to prepare a good argument, and they get ready for me to play in their head and win. So I don't look like that anymore. This is a disguise. Where a lot of this started was, I used to work for a company called Ironlac. Does anyone know Ironlac here? Probably quite a few people. So Ironlac is a really pivotal company within street art in Brisbane. So for those of you that haven't met me before, street art is sort of my big thing, the thing most people know me for. I'm a high school teacher, a visual artist, like fine art, canvas sort of stuff, a muralist, a reformed vandal. I MC a table tennis tournament here Monday nights, start at 6:45, $4. You save $4.50 off your pints. We have drink deals, meal deals, and it's an all-round good night. So see you all there Monday night. Thank you, felons. There's your plug. And I advocate for the public arts with council quite a lot. So it all started when I was working for Ironlac. Working for Ironlac, I came out of quite a dark place. So I'd been a car salesman, I'd come out of a very long-term relationship with a super messy breakup, and I was like, do you know what's fun? Drinking makes the pain go away. What makes drinking better? A little bit of drugs for some razzle-dazzle. And when you sober up, what makes the pain go away? Kill yourself. So a really dark place to be. one night, I tried to end it all because I figured it wasn't worth sticking around. My life wasn't interesting. It was going nowhere good. Everything I thought I had and every direction I thought was positive had been abruptly ended. I was tired and I just wanted to make the pain go away. So I tried to do it and I couldn't. I got really close and just last minute, there's something in your brain that goes, yo, we don't actually want to die, man. And it sort of overrides last minute. I'm really thankful for it. But what it did was really make me aware of living. So like, I remember just like 30 seconds afterwards, I was like, I should be dead. Then like a minute afterwards, I was like, I should be dead, like none of this I should experience. Half an hour later, I'm in tears and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't be experiencing any of this, I should be dead. And that just built and built and built over days and days and days. Like you'd wake up in the morning and just like, sounds super cliche, but like see a nice sunrise or like see clouds or flowers or like your dog or something and you're like, oh, I almost gave up this feeling. So that got me thinking. I sort of felt like I was living on borrowed time. I felt like at that point where I tried to end it, like that was like the main game. That was the real game. I should be dead. I'm not dead. Therefore, like I've completed my responsibilities. Anything from here on is bonus time. Well, when you play a game and you're in bonus time, you start taking big risks and you just do things for funsies. So I just started doing things for funsies. So instead of getting another grown-up job, I went and worked for Iron Lac. This is me teaching one of my first art workshops. This is the first painting I had painted in 7 years because Iron Lac asked if anyone could do a sip and paint. And I was like, oh yeah, me. And they're like, have you done this before? I'm like, oh dude, so many times. Like, heaps. And they're like, oh yeah, cool. And I'm like, can I get like some paints and brushes and like a canvas just to like get the workshop dialed in? They're like, yeah, of course. And that's what I painted, which is arguably a really bad painting, but I did it. I keep it on my social media just to sort of prove that that's where I was. Now, working for Iron Lac, as you can see, a bunch of spray cans in the background, I got to know some of the biggest, some of the best graffiti artists, not just like in my neighborhood, my work, but the entire world. So my graph education was outrageous. It's like I didn't even go to primary school. I just sort of went straight to an Ivy League university of graph. When I was there, my friend Lenny was teaching me a lot. He's quite a well-respected person in the global graph scene, and I thanked him for everything he taught me. And he said something really important to me. He said, you don't owe me anything. You owe graffiti. Everyone sort of sees graffiti as like vandalism, or if you're real bougie, you're like, it's an art form, it's so expressive, it's anti-government, look at you go. Nah, we're just sort of like grown-ass dudes that want to be tough but also draw pictures. So we find other grown-ass men that want to be tough and also draw pictures. And with that, we have a whole community where one of the pillars of hip-hop, which I consider the second renaissance, like I can go really, really deep on this, but I've got 20 minutes. So let's just stick to the fact that I learned a lot. And what Lenny said was, don't owe me, you owe graffiti. And I said, what do you mean by that? He goes, it's not my knowledge to keep, it's not your knowledge to keep. He goes, it's your knowledge to have, to use, to benefit from. But when you get a chance to pass it on, or to give back to graffiti, you should give back. You should look for that opportunity. And I was always like, yeah, but I'm never gonna be like you guys, like pushing the art form, developing new skills, like inspiring people. That's never gonna happen for me. He's like, doesn't matter, just look for it. I was like, all right, cool. Anyway, I went on and this was my first ever group exhibition. In this exhibition, do I have no laser? No. In this group exhibition, I was so nervous. I remember bumping in with my mum, who's also an artist, and we walked in, I saw the other artists, and I was like, yo, mum, let's back to the car. And she's like, what for? These guys are so much better than me, I don't belong here. She's like, no, don't be silly. I was like, no, mum, this is really embarrassing. We have to pack my shit up. My mum forced me to keep my stuff there and to set it up, and I'm forever thankful of that. But I got a message from Councillor Ryan Murphy, who was the councillor for the area where I grew up and is now the chair for transport. And he messaged me and goes, are these pieces for sale even if you don't attend? I was like, yeah, I'll take whatever money you got. And he's like, how much is the goon sack and the Story Bridge behind? And I told him, and for me, they were ridiculous prices. I think they were like $700 and $500, and I was like, who would pay that much money? And I just thought Ryan would go, oh, okay, thank you, and not respond. He goes, cool, can I have them both? I was like, yeah. So he bought my two first major pieces and has been buying them ever since. Now I say that because when we start talking about the legal wars, it was Ryan that actually made a lot of it happen. Because council is a really messy thing that I don't know how to navigate. So it was actually the chair for the transport department that bought my old art that helped me do it. So you're starting to get an idea of how like this weird, messy road seems to be heading in the same direction. This was my first mural for Brisbane Street Art Festival. This was also a weird experience because again, I didn't feel like I belonged there, but I got that opportunity. And this was, I guess, the first time that I started to feel like a grown-up street artist. Then there was this one, probably my biggest break, I think, as an artist. I got to paint Jamie Dunn and his puppet Aggro for the Brisbane Portrait Prize. For any like 80s or 90s kids in here, you will know like just how much of a big deal that was. When I heard Aggro say my name, I was like, like, yeah, I know it's the weird old man sitting there making a funny voice and it's just the two of us in my lounge room. Yeah, on paper that's weird, but also the puppet said my name. Jamie is one of the most incredible humans I've ever met. We see like the silly goose side of him quite a lot, but what we very rarely see is the human side, and I think like the business side of him. So Jamie's got a really diverse, really weird career, and that's sort of where my career was heading. And I remember saying to him, like, it sort of clicked to me, like, oh, you're actually someone that's been super successful by doing weird things. And I think I'm going to be a professional weirdo. So I asked him if he had any advice, and he just said, just say yes to everything. Just say yes to everything and work it out afterwards. You never know what opportunity will arise just because you were there. And I was like, all right, well, if it worked for you, who am I to argue? That brings us to my really big achievement. This is my handsome friend Smalls. He's the looks of the operation. I know the mullet because he's also the brains and also a lot of other things. And this is my boy Shrindog, Adrian Schrinner. When was it? During Botanica 2 years ago, Smalls and I were meant to be painting live for like the big bougie executive launch of it. For those of you like getting started in the arts, one of the cool things is when you draw pictures good, they invite you to fancy events and give you free booze. It's awesome. So Smallsy and I went to one of those events, but we got rained off. So they were like, well, would you like to come into the event? We were like, yeah, if there's free booze, we'll be there. So we walked in there and like dressed worse than this. I had like a black t-shirt and shorts that were literally like soaked in paint, and we walked in and literally got eyeballed by people like, who are you scumbags? And we're like, hey guys, nice suit, thanks for having us. Anyway, the night before, I'd been a guest speaker at Gatons, the big law firm, because of my portrait of Jamie Dunn. So when you get to know big fancy lawyers, they are connected in with government and other big fancy rich people that go to these events. So they actually invited us to sit at their table. Anyway, sitting at their table was Adrian Schrinner, and I introduced myself because, I don't know, like, I voted for him, he works for me, I can say hello. So I did. Anyway, he found out that we were the two guys that drew pictures good, and that's why we were dressed like shit, so he decided to talk to us. Anyway, went over, showed him our walls that we'd painted really hungover that morning, and he made the mistake of saying to me, what's it like being a street artist in Brisbane? And I laughed in his face. And I said, would you like my honest answer or my polite answer? And to his credit, he looked me back in the eye and said, now I really want your honest answer. And I said, it's shithouse, and it's all thanks to your Liberal government. And he goes, okay, why is that? Now, because of my years of working for Ironlap, I'd become somewhat of a historian of graph. I could tell him that in 2008, we had the Great Buff of Brisbane where Campbell Newman painted over all of our historic graffiti in Brisbane. That we had none of the early stuff from the 70s and 80s when it first came to Brisbane, other than in the powerhouse where it was now heritage listed and people other than us were earning money off it. And I sort of pointed out that it was really weird that like Campbell Newman's brother-in-law owned a paint company that got the sole contract for that job. So like they sort of fucked us on that. I also pointed out that we had 3 task forces. We had Task Force Against Graffiti, which was the council's task force. We had Rail Squad, which is Queensland Rail's task force against graffiti. And we had GTF, the Graffiti Task Force, which is, or was, RIP GTF, the Queensland Police's task force. All of them were chasing down people who drew pictures on walls and putting them in jail. I have friends that have lost their freedom and gone to jail because they drew pictures on walls. So that's a big problem. And then I said to him, in 10 years, because it was 10 years at the time, I said, in 10 years' time, you're going to have the Olympics, which means in 9 years' time, you're going to say, artists of Brisbane, come out and make our city beautiful. And we're not going to be there. We're all going to be interstate, overseas, or simply won't exist. Because the current generation, so on the global scale, Brisbane has produced some of the best graffiti artists in the world. Like I have met multiple backpackers and tourists that decided to come to Brisbane because of how good we paint pictures on walls. On the global scale of things, you tell a graffiti writer you're from Brisbane and they go, oh shit, and start throwing knowledge at you that really you should know as a resident, you should be really proud of. I said, they're gonna be old. They're gonna be like in their 50s. Yeah, they can do it, but really they're not gonna want to. And the good ones will be overseas earning real money. And worst of all, our next generation's not gonna be there because they all got charges and stopped, or they just never had anywhere to grow and to get big. I'm also a high school teacher, so I have a graffiti group at my school, and I got to know a lot of the kids that have shown me photos and be like, sir, check out this piece I painted on the weekend. I'd be like, yeah, cool story, man, but is that in a drain? And they're like, yeah, why's that? I'm like, is there any ventilation in there? They're like, no, we go down one at a time, and like we come out when we start to get head spins. And I'm like, you're not wearing respirators? And they're like, nah, sir, we can't afford respirators. And I wanted to get angry at him, but then I was like, that's the sort of dumb shit that I did at that age. And like, that's got to stop at some point. So anyway, back to the meeting with the Lord Mayor. Sorry, I'm sort of all over the shop. Back to the meeting with the Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor looked at us and he goes, this sounds like a genuine problem. We go, yeah, we think so. He goes, what do we do about it? Well, Smallsy's from Canberra. And Smalls goes, well, I'm from Canberra, and down there we got 36 government-supported legal walls. He goes, when I grew up, literally at the end of my street was a place that I could legally paint. So I did. Every day after school, some of my friends went to the skate park, some of my friends went to the legal wall. And we just painted and painted and painted, and I just got really good. Until one day I could take those photos and show local businesses and start to earn some money for it and get paid. The Lord Mayor goes, wow, fascinating. So how do they do that? Someone goes, what do you mean? You go, well, how do you make a legal wall? He's like, I don't know, you just like put up a sign and some bins and stop charging people? The Lord Mayor's like, that seems really simple. He's like, it is. So anyway, that got the ball rolling. Smallsy and I walked away from that conversation and we literally said to each other, we either just achieved something massive or he's a great politician and has been pissing in our pocket. Next day, so because I'm friends with Ryan and I'd met some other politicians through running workshops and stuff, my phone starts blowing up from all these local libs texting me going, I don't know what the fuck you said last night, but you said something. What do you mean? We've all just been called into a meeting, been absolutely reamed and told that we're not doing enough to support public art in Brisbane and we need to all go out to our wards and actively look for opportunities to support public art. And I'm like, oh shit. I think I just created work for myself. So anyway, here we are, 2 and a bit years later. I have earned no money, not a single dollar. It has cost me money, and I think conservatively now I'm on to about 100 hours per legal wall that I've launched. It sucks. It's really hard. Makes me super cranky when I get like pissed off messages from junkie writers telling me that I'm a cop or like people are gonna get arrested because of me or some bullshit like that. But at the end of the day, that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it to give back to Graph. And I guess that's my main message for today. I know that in here, pretty much all creatives. I imagine that's the only reason you wake up at stupid o'clock in the morning to go to a free event called Creative Mornings. With that, I would like to think that a large majority of you earn money off being creative. It's awesome. But none of our creativity is ever made in a vacuum. It's always taking from a culture, a movement, something that's come before, a history. And somehow with graffiti, people seem to forget that. People love to use like a generic graffiti font generator. Like the Australian Street Art Awards, I could tell they weren't run by a street artist because they used a generic graffiti font generator for their logo, and I was like, oh boy, that ain't it, chief. But like, it wasn't that hard. I'm a regular guy. I have a shit haircut. I used to sell cars. I wear flannels, and I just talk shit real good. So I was able to convince a politician to let my friends draw pictures on walls. So I guess my big push to everyone is like, if you get an opportunity to do it, do it. Yeah, I'm working for free, but I think I accidentally created a whole position that now Brisbane City Council sees they need, which means I'm currently in talks for like, how can you pay me for this? Because they see value in it. So I didn't know what to talk about when I came here. I felt like it was kind of bullshit just to talk about myself, but I figured I was allowed to talk about myself if I was able to point out just how normal I am. Nothing really special about me. I got special things, but no more special than anyone else. But I think it's pretty special what I was able to achieve with Smalls and some help from a bunch of people. So keep an eye out. Do what Lenny told me and just keep your eye out for that opportunity to give back to a community, a creative community, and see what happens from it. So, ta-da!